What if I told you there's a book so powerful it literally preserved the soul of a nation? A single poem that acted as a fortress for an entire language, protecting it against the tides of time and conquest? Well, today we're diving into the story of one of the world's greatest epics, the Shahnameh, or the Book of Kings. And honestly, where else could we even begin but with this incredible prophecy from the poet himself, Ferdowsi? He wrote these lines over 1,000 years ago, totally confident that his life's work would give him a kind of immortality. And you know what? He wasn't wrong. So this is way more than just a story about some famous poem. This is a story of cultural survival. It's about a 30-year personal mission to gather the myths, the legends, and the history of a civilization that was genuinely at risk of just fading away. The stakes here were nothing less than the very identity of the Persian people. All right, so to really get just how massive Ferdowsi's achievement was, we need to kind of step back in time. We've got to understand the world he was living in, a world where his culture was frankly on the brink. Just think about this for a second. The Sassanid Empire, that was the last great pre-Islamic Persian empire, it falls in the 7th century. Now, fast forward 350 years. That's a huge gap in time. By the time Ferdowsi picks up his pen, Arabic is the dominant language of government, of science, of high culture. The old Persian language and its ancient stories, they were being worn down, at risk of being lost forever. And it was in that exact climate that Ferdowsi decided to begin his quest. And who was this guy, Ferdowsi? Well, this is absolutely crucial. He was a Dakhan. And that's not just some fancy title for a landowner. No, the Dakhans were basically the living libraries of Persia. They were the keepers of memory. They were the ones who had preserved the old stories, the ancestral records, all the traditional lore for centuries. This position gave Ferdowsi unique access. He had the keys to the kingdom, the foundational stories he needed for his epic masterpiece. So, with the soul of his culture hanging in the balance, Ferdowsi embarked on what has to be one of the most ridiculously ambitious literary projects in all of human history. Just look at that number, 50,000 rhyming couplets. To put that into perspective, that's more than 3 times the length of Homer's Iliad. It is an absolutely mind-boggling amount of work for one person, and it shows a kind of dedication that's almost superhuman. And you know, this wasn't magic. It was sheer, relentless hard work. Ferdowsi wasn't just inventing these stories out of thin air. He was a master compiler, a weaver of tales. He drew on old prose histories that had already collected these ancient stories. He even built on the work of another poet, Dakiki, who had started a similar project but was tragically killed. Ferdowsi respectfully included Dakiki's verses. And then, for 33 years, he sat down and painstakingly turned it all into breathtaking poetry. But, and this is a big but, finishing this monumental work was not the end of Ferdowsi's struggle. Oh no. In fact, it led to one of the most famous and, frankly, heartbreaking stories of artistic betrayal you will ever hear. See, when Ferdowsi started this whole thing, his patrons were the Sassanids, a Persian dynasty that was all about reviving Persian culture. Perfect, right? The ideal audience. But during the 3 decades he was writing, the whole political map changed. The Turkic Ghaznavids, led by Sultan Mahmud, conquered the region. And Mahmud, well, he had very different priorities, and really couldn't have cared less about this epic of Persian kings. So the legend goes that Ferdowsi had been promised a gold coin for each of the thousands of couplets he wrote. After 33 years of labor, he presents his masterpiece. But instead of a fortune in gold, he got a payment in silver, a tiny fraction of the value. And look, it wasn't just about the money. It was a devastating insult. It was a symbol of the new ruler's complete disregard for his life's work. So Ferdowsi died in poverty, embittered by this royal neglect. But, just as he himself predicted, his work was destined for a different kind of glory. The ultimate triumph of the Shahnameh wasn't in gold coins, but in its profound and lasting impact on the Persian language itself. This is so fascinating. At a time when other Persian texts were filled with Arabic loanwords, we're talking up to 30%, Ferdowsi made a conscious choice. He deliberately practiced a kind of linguistic protectionism, keeping the Arabic vocabulary in his epic to around 9%. He was essentially building a treasure chest of pure Persian words for future generations. And this act of linguistic preservation had a massive impact. The Shahnameh became an anchor for the modern Persian language. It's one of the main reasons why a Persian speaker today can read this 1,000-year-old text with relative ease. I mean, that's almost unheard of with other languages. He didn't just tell stories, he saved a language. But the story doesn't end there.
The Shahnameh's central role in Persian identity meant it was also reinterpreted and, at times, let's be honest, politicized in the modern era, creating a series of powerful myths.
So you'll hear the myth that the Shahnameh has 0 Arabic words. As we've seen, that's not true. It has about 9%, which shows a deliberate choice, not total exclusion. Another one is that it's a secular, anti-Islamic text. In reality, Ferdowsi, a Shia Muslim, opens the poem with praise for God and the Prophet Muhammad, beautifully blending traditions. The idea that it's all about a confrontational, pure Persian identity is also a modern reading. The text itself is full of cross-cultural exchange. So why do these myths exist? Well, in the 20th century, the Pahlavi dynasty in Iran used the Shahnameh as a political tool. They promoted a very specific reading of the text to build a modern, secular, national identity linked to a pre-Islamic Aryan past. In this narrative, Ferdowsi was reimagined as this anti-Arab nationalist, a story that fit their political goals but really obscured the true complexity of the man and his work. In the end, though, despite the royal neglect, the political manipulations, and all the modern myths, Ferdowsi's own assessment of his work just rings truest. With his verse, he said he revived a people. And he did. He gave them a linguistic and cultural anchor that has held fast for over a millennium. His mission was a profound success. The story of the Shahnameh shows that a book can be both a timeless work of art and an incredibly powerful political symbol. And it raises this crucial question. When an epic poem becomes so intertwined with a nation's identity, who truly gets to decide what it means?